This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Friday, May 23rd, 2025, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. Coming up in today's episode, I will be joined by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for our closing markets ahead of the three-day weekend for Memorial Day. But first, it is time for the conversation with Andy Peterson. He is joined by Lee Koenigsfeld, Northeast Iowa Beck's hybrids agronomist, here on Ag Matters PM.
Out of the field we go with outstanding Northeast Iowa area agronomist Lee Koenigsfeld with Beck's hybrids. I suppose, Lee, I should update my virtual background a little bit here, as I think most of those things are probably, including that one, mostly cleaned up and put away by now.
Yeah. Let's hope so. I think we were pretty well wrapped up here in Northeast Iowa too. We had a little bit of replant the previous, I'll say 10 days or so, maybe up to 14 days. We've been dealing with a little bit of replant issues here in Northeast Iowa. Guys got done relatively early with the first pass. We're able to get pretty aggressive on the replant side of things. The earlier we realize that we've got a stand issue, the more aggressive we can be about making changes or pulling the trigger on a replant. The later it gets, the more likely we are to leave that stand and just kind of let it run its course, so to speak, depending on how bad the stand loss is. I mean, it's a field by field scenario. So yeah, replant's never fun. I don't enjoy it. It's a very nuanced conversation, basically, because you have to take it almost field by field. When was it planted? What's the stand at? What date are we at right now? Is it corn? Is it beans? On the bean side, can we just spike them in? We've done some PFR studies that show that if we could just spike the soybeans in as opposed to ripping up and starting over, that's the best route to go. We try to save as much of that established stand as we can. And obviously corn, it's just so hard with corn for the most part. You're ripping up chunks of the field, if not the whole field, and just kind of starting over just due to the way that corn is very, very particular with its spacing and what it can do there. So yeah, that's been my last 10 to 14 days, is dealing with some replants. We got a few stragglers out there we'll probably wrap up with here, maybe the end of this week, but now it's moving on to the next things. So yeah, planters are pretty well put away.
That's what I was going to ask you on soybeans. Any particular stand that you're looking for? I mean, the corn is pretty clear, right? 26,000 or less, and it gets ripped up. But
yeah,
beans,
especially
there certainly are nuances to the discussion.
Yeah, especially as early as we had that. Basically, anything in that mid 20s, we were ripping up and starting over. We start getting into that upper 20s. We start having a discussion about what hybrid is it? Can it flex? Does it not flex? But on the soybean side of things, our data says somewhere in that 60 to 70,000 is economic as far as what you can live with a stand. Now, with our weed pressure in Northeast Iowa, I don't know how happy I would be with weed control with just the lack of canopy closure with only 60 to 70,000 out there. So a lot of times if we're down that low, I will still recommend spiking some in. But if we're in that 80 to 90, I'm probably not going to mess with it too much. So
yeah, you mentioned the next thing coming, which is, speaking of weeds, probably post-emerge application on corn, and of course maybe a second pass nitrogen, or first pass in some cases, side dress application is just as soon as things dry out.
Basically, yeah. As soon as we dry out from this storm here, it'll be heavy into post-spraying applications on corn, trying to make sure we get those weeds under control. Remember, the smaller the weeds are, the better. We don't want to try to take down 1 to 2 foot tall water hemp, giant ragweed, you name it. The bigger they are, the harder they are to kill, and the more and more issues we're having with herbicide resistance every year, it seems like. So do yourself a favor and get out there early, be proactive on the herbicide side of things. and make sure we are layering our residuals in. So that is the big thing, is keep the field clean with your knockdown, your pre's and everything like that, and then layer in a residual with that post pass. A lot of our co-pack herbicides nowadays have that residual product built in, which is nice. But for guys doing their own spraying and maybe they're making their own mixes, so to speak, make sure we're not skipping that layered residual, because you could be paying for it and trying to run in there with drop nozzles later in the season, which nobody even wants to go down that road. So
yeah, we had to do that during the Great Jones County Fair, which is the middle of July here 3 years ago, on some water hemp escapes. And you're right, that is not a whole lot of fun, and it gets expensive in a hurry. So a little bit of extra prep now certainly does, in a lot of cases, pay off. What are you looking at as far as that nitrogen application? Have we had enough moisture now maybe to adjust some application rates, or you think we're still in pretty good shape?
No, I actually had this question from one of my district guys this morning. If I was starting to get worried about nitrogen loss due to all this moisture, the short answer right now is no. I'm not overly concerned about a bunch of nitrogen that has been leached out of the soil profile. Have we moved it down a little bit? Yeah, maybe, but has it gotten out of grasp? No, I don't think so by any means. So I'm not really looking at adjusting what your initial nitrogen plan was yet at this point in time. Now I think we've got some rain in the forecast here. Maybe going into Sunday, looking at Monday, at least up in my neck of the woods anyway. So we'll see what that does. But as of right now, I don't think we've had enough. We really needed the rain that we just got. We were very dry. Some of those replants we were starting to have to deepen the planter up a little bit to try to make sure we were getting those beans or corn down into moisture. So we were drying out very, very quickly, and we're happy to receive some moisture. So there's no doubt about that.
That was the case in East Central Iowa as well. So as always, you can look at beckshybrids.com and find out all of that practical farm research that addresses a lot of the situations that we discuss here.
Yep. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you to Northeast Iowa Beck's Hybrids agronomist Lee Koenigsfeld for joining today's show, and thank you to Andy Peterson for leading the conversation. It is time now for a check of the closing markets, and I will be joined by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net. But first, a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
You're watching Ag Matters PM, and it is time now for closing markets as I'm joined by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net. Sam, here ahead of the 3-day weekend, and of course no trading coming up on Monday because of the Memorial Day holiday. What did we see in the trade in the grains?
It was a relatively quiet day trading today. The corn and soybean markets had a weaker tone for most of the trading session. Cattle markets were a little bit firmer, but we did see an announcement first thing this morning. President Trump posted on Truth Social that he will be recommending a 50% tariff on the European Union starting on June 1st. His reasoning behind that is that talks with them up to this point have gone absolutely nowhere, and he's wanting to speed things along and feels like tariffs is the best way to do that for the time being. So that news came out, like I said, first thing this morning, and just kind of put everything on the defensive for most of the day.
And then also, Sam, was there the fact thrown in today that we do have that long weekend coming up and maybe just getting positions ahead of opening trade on Tuesday next week?
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you have a 3-day weekend this time of the year, this generally always provides some sort of excitement when that market opens back up on Monday night. All eyes are going to be focused on the weather forecast. Up to this point in the year, we really haven't had much of a weather scare. I know a little bit south of me here in southern Illinois, they've been struggling with a little bit too much rain and not being able to get the crop in the ground. And the further east you go, say over into Ohio, they've been struggling with that as well. But for a large majority of the growing regions, we've had pretty favorable conditions to get this crop in. Saw some dryness there where guys were able to get rolling and get the crop in the ground, and then saw some timely rains here earlier this week that really helped things along. But if you look to that extended forecast, it does look like it's starting to dry out, and we don't have a ton of soil moisture there as a reserve. So we will need to see rains continue to pop in here and there. And as I mentioned, that extended forecast is starting to dry out. So all eyes are going to be on that. And if that stays the same or even worsens a little bit, would not be surprised one bit to see an exciting open on Monday night.
We talked to your coworker, Matt Bennett, this morning on our radio show, and he said he's looking to wrap things up as far as planning goes on Tuesday, hopefully, as he needs a few days to dry things out as well. Let's go over to the other side of the ag marketplace now, the livestock complex. What was the story for the cattle and hog trade today?
So for cattle, I'll touch on that first. They've continued to rally despite last week's pretty ugly sell-off. I think last week when I talked to you on Friday, we were dealing with a pretty ugly look on the charts here for the livestock markets. We made a new contract high, I believe, on Thursday, and then reversed lower on that day, closed lower, and then Friday we were down lower again. However, this week we have been able to put in a base of lows and rally just about each day, and we're inching back closer to those all-time highs here. And later this afternoon, we will have a cattle on feed report. No real changes there. The trend here over the last 5 months has been lower than last year. So we don't really expect that to change, and that just continues to drive these cattle markets higher. The cash market's trading $10 to $20 premium to the futures, so it's we're going to continue to see these futures try to catch up to the cash market. And then as far as the hog market, we were a little bit lower today. Late last week put in a nice high there, and we kind of ran into a little bit of technical resistance, some weaker export demand. The tariff news didn't help anything with the hogs either this morning. So a little bit weaker trade there, but yeah, that cattle market, man, it's just been one of those things that just hang on and get ready for the ride higher, because it just can't seem to keep the good dog down.
What's the best way for our viewers to get in contact and discuss some of the things we talked about today, or any other marketing strategies?
Best way would be to visit our website at agmarket.net, or give me a call here in Normal at 1-800-779-1515.
Sam Trainor of agmarket.net, our guest today. Sam, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it as always, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, Mark. You too.
Thank you to Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for joining today's show. For our closing markets, let's take a look at the closing numbers, how the markets closed today. You can find that information anytime under the Markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com.
July corn closes down 3.5 at 459.5. July soybeans down 7 1/4 at 1060 1/4. July soybean meal down 230 at 296.20. July soybean oil up 24 cents at 49.35. Chicago wheat down 2 pennies at 542.5. Minneapolis wheat up 6 1/4 at 606.5. Kansas City hard red wheat down 1 1/4 at 538 3/4. July oats down 4.5 at 354 3/4. On the Merc, June live cattle up 18 cents at 215.80. August feeder cattle up 60 cents at $300.38. June lean hogs down 40 cents at 98.30. June pork cutout down 43 cents at 105.68. Class 3 milk down 43 cents at 19.40.
That wraps up our closing market coverage for today and brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notification icon as well to let you know whenever there's any new videos from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. You can follow us on social media at Facebook, X, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And also, don't forget to listen to our morning, midday, and closing market podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast at Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and Podbean. Also, check out our daily episodes of our Iowa Ag Matters podcast. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Andy Peterson, and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.